The town clock showed almost 8 at night. The cold started sliding down the streets, lit by fancy signs and shiny windows. On one side of the sidewalk, a classy restaurant welcomed well-dressed couples, men in suits, and families arriving in imported cars. On the other side, leaning on a wall, a girl barely 9 years old watched everything in silence. Her stomach growled, and her big, tired eyes revealed sleepless nights. Her hair was tangled, her clothes dirty, and her bare feet hurt by the rough ground. But the strongest detail wasn't her looks. It was the stare of someone carrying hunger, fear, and hope at once. While waiters rushed back and forth carrying pricey plates, the smell of food crossed the glass door and made the girl swallow hard. She hesitated a few times, took a deep breath, and gathered courage. When an elegant woman stepped out of the restaurant, the girl slowly walked closer. "Ma'am," the voice was low, shy, almost a whisper. "Can I eat your leftovers?" The woman froze right away. She was a millionaire known in the city, owner of companies, designer clothes, and a picture of power printed in business magazines. Her heels echoed on the shiny floor as she slowly turned her head to face that small figure before her. For a moment, there was silence. People nearby also noticed. Some looked with apathy, others with disdain, and a few with slight unease. The scene felt out of place in that rich setting. The girl, with shaking hands, repeated, "I don't want cash, just a bit of what's left. Please." The millionaire scanned her up and down. She was used to beggars, but there was something different in that tone. It wasn't blackmail, it wasn't a trick. It was a plain, raw, real request. Even so, her instincts pulled her back to coldness. She tried to turn to call the driver, but the girl's eyes stayed locked on hers, like a mirror of something she herself tried to bury. The tension grew. Passers-by slowed, curious. A couple whispered, "Look at that. How odd. With her, of all people." The millionaire took a deep breath, trying to ignore it. But suddenly, flashes of memory stabbed her mind. Her own poor childhood, the empty belly on endless nights, the feeling of being invisible to the world. She had buried those memories in the name of success, but now they were alive again, standing right there in that child. Her heart raced. The millionaire felt something she wasn't used to, vulnerability, but instead of showing it, she raised her chin higher. The silence on the sidewalk was heavy, and then, with a cold voice, she said, "I have nothing for you." The words cut the air. The girl lowered her head. She didn't cry, didn't complain. She just whispered, "Thanks anyway." And slowly, she walked to the trash bin of the restaurant, trying to find some forgotten piece of bread. At that instant, something cracked inside the millionaire. People glanced around, some shaking their heads, others pretending not to see. For many, it was just one more street scene, but for the millionaire, something was unbearable in that silent act of the girl. She, who had built an empire to never feel hunger again, was staring at her own childhood alive in front of her. Her heart was heavy, but her mind screamed, "Don't get involved, it's not your problem." The night moved on, and the restaurant lights kept shining, blind to the pain happening right outside. But that plain request, "Can I eat your leftovers?" had already carved itself into her memory like a wound that wouldn't heal. The conflict was open, and nothing that night would end as she had planned. The wind sliced through the streets like thin blades of ice. Rushed people passed, wrapped in pricey coats, holding bags from brand stores. For them, it was just another normal night. But for the 9-year-old girl, it was one more quiet fight against hunger. She had slept on the sidewalk the night before, wrapped in a torn blanket someone had tossed away. Her small body had gotten used to the cold, but her empty stomach never did. That's why, when she caught the smell of roasted meat and fresh bread coming from the fancy restaurant, courage spoke louder than fear. And that's how she got close to the millionaire, the woman who seemed untouchable. The plain request, "Can I eat your leftovers?" echoed like an open wound. The millionaire had answered with ice, and the girl, instead of pushing in anger, thanked softly and stepped back. But hunger doesn't allow quitting. She spoke again, her voice almost breaking. "Ma'am, I promise I won't ask for money. I just really wanted a little food." Those words fell like heavy stones in the elegant woman's chest. The driver already held the car door open, but the millionaire didn't move. There was something in that moment that froze her. The collective discomfort inside the restaurant, through the glass windows, couples laughed, kids played with expensive desserts, and waiters rushed to serve more dishes. Outside on the sidewalk, that girl chewed her own shame. Some customers leaving couldn't resist commenting, "It's always like this. These beggars ruin the mood," said a man with a shiny watch. "City Hall should ban this from fancy areas," his wife added, holding her purse tight. The stares weren't of pity. They were of annoyance, as if hunger were some kind of ugly detail, something that didn't match the bright front of the wealthy city. The millionaire heard it all, and for the first time in a long while felt shame, not of the girl, but of herself, for having turned into one of the people who once made her suffer. She closed her eyes for a second. The memories came like a flood. As a child, there were nights when there was nothing to eat. Her mother cut a boiled potato into 4 pieces so the siblings would think it was dinner. Other times, she stood at the bakery door, waiting for the workers to toss stale bread in the trash. She also remembered a scene she never forgot. At 10 years old, she walked up to a fancy lady leaving a restaurant and asked for the scraps of her plate. The woman looked at her with disgust and said the exact same words she had just repeated, "I have nothing for you." That day, she cried in secret and promised herself she would never depend on anyone's kindness again. She worked, studied, took risks, built an empire. But along the way, she shut her heart to never feel weak. Now, though, she was face to face with her own childhood, reflected in those hungry eyes. The child, noticing she would get nothing, walked to the restaurant trash bin. She carefully opened the bag and found a piece of hard bread. She held it like a treasure, looked around to make sure no one would chase her off, and began to chew slowly, savoring every crumb. It was only dry bread, but for her, it was a feast. The millionaire felt her stomach twist. How could it be that with so much waste, a child had to eat from the garbage? The contrast was unbearable. Inside, pricey dishes left half full. Outside, a child thankful to chew dry remains. "Madam?" the driver insisted, already annoyed by the wait. "Will you get in?" She didn't answer. Her heart raced, and her thoughts were a storm. More people stopped to watch. "This is risky. These kids can steal," said a man. "Sad, but if you help one, 10 more show up," said another, shaking his head. The girl heard it, but pretended not to. She kept eating the hard bread, as if it were the last meal of her life. After a few minutes, she lifted her eyes to the millionaire, and with a shy smile said, "Thanks anyway. I promise I won't bother again." That smile was the final blow. No demand, no bitterness. Just gratitude for nothing. The millionaire felt a tear slip, but quickly wiped it before anyone noticed. The driver closed the door, impatient. "Madam, we still have an appointment tonight." She gave no reply. She stared at the girl, feeling like she was at a crossroad. She could simply get in the car and forget everything in minutes, like everyone else did. Or she could face the discomfort and act, and deep down, she knew any choice would not just change the girl's life, it would change hers too. It was as if life had placed a mirror in front of her. Will you repeat the cycle of coldness, or will you break it now? At that instant, she recalled an interview she had read years ago. Oprah Winfrey, now one of the richest women in the world, said that as a child she asked neighbors for food because there was nothing at home, and that a single act of kindness from a teacher, giving her new shoes when she went barefoot to school, had changed how she saw the world. If that teacher hadn't looked at her with care, maybe Oprah would never have believed she deserved more. The millionaire took a deep breath. She realized she faced the same chance, to become the person who offers a hand or the one who turns away. The girl finished the hard bread and with slow steps started to walk away down the dim street. Her small shape blended with the shadows. It was then the millionaire felt a pain in her chest, as strong as the hunger of her past. It was as if an inner voice shouted, If you let this child go, you'll carry this weight forever. And she knew without doubt the night would not end as planned. The night air felt heavier as the girl moved away. The driver, with the car door still open, looked at his watch and almost reminded her, but swallowed the words when he saw the boss fixed on the little figure, fading into the dark. The street, once just background, was now stage, and all the stares, judgments and silences weighed like spotlights. The millionaire tried to breathe steady, her flawless face holding the neutral mask trained in meetings and grand dinners. Inside, though, the tectonic plates of memory shifted. A clear memory rose, too sharp to ignore. A neighborhood soup kitchen, a line wrapping the block, the smell of thin broth and old bread. She, smaller than the girl before her, balanced a plastic plate that shook in her hands. A woman in an apron gave a sad smile. "It's finished early today, dear." And someone behind muttered, "Who comes late only gets scraps." Scraps. The word stung. In the present, the girl leaned near the trash and split in half the piece of hard bread she had found. Before eating, she bent down and offered one half to a stray dog that had come sniffing, tail tucked. The dog hesitates, sniffs, accepts. The child smiles at him like sharing a secret. The simple act, almost unseen by people rushing by, pierces the millionaire like an arrow. Those who have little and still share hold something money can't buy. The urge to leave, to shut the door, speed off and return to the bubble where all is safe, gives way to a stubborn unease. The comfort of ignoring always worked. Not tonight. Tonight, something in her refuses to be the polished version of herself. "Madam?" The driver calls, polite but restless. "Traffic at the exit will get worse." She doesn't answer. She touches her collarbone, as if to check her heart is still there. It is, beating too fast. A classy couple walks past. The woman casts a glance mixing pity and weariness. The man mutters, loud enough to sting, "There's always one of these. The city has to fix it. Not in front of the restaurant. Fix it." The phrase keeps hammering, as if it were a bothersome object, a trash bag out of place, and not a small life hungry, with wide eyes and cracked feet. A waiter opens the restaurant door to place a tray of dishes on the side table. On one bowl, 2 untouched spoons of risotto. On another, 3 big shrimp lying like statues. The millionaire follows the tray to the cart, then back to the girl chewing the stiff bread. The contrast is obscene, and for the first time in years, she feels anger, not at the girl, at herself, for how she learned to call efficiency the act of not seeing, for how she labeled as focus the discipline of crossing other people's pain without leaving marks. Her phone buzzes. It's her assistant. "Meeting at 8:30 confirmed. Press asking if you'll speak tomorrow." Fate hands her a test. The schedule, that altar that always ruled her, now competing with a child sharing bread with a skinny dog. The millionaire taps mute with the care of someone defusing a bomb. She takes one step toward the sidewalk. The driver straightens, startled. "Madam?" "Close the door, please," she says, eyes still on the girl. He obeys, confused. Some customers recognize the powerful woman and whisper. Someone pulls out a phone to record, as if any move of a known figure were a show. She notices, and for a second almost slips back into her usual role. The pose, the trained smile, the shield. But the sight of the dog devouring the bread drags her back. She takes the second step. She hears her own heels tapping the ground, tick, 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 each sound a reason not to escape. She comes close enough to see the girl has a cut below her knee, the skin raw, old dirt stuck. The hands holding the bread are black with dust, but the fingers are thin, delicate, like those of someone who might one day hold a pencil with skill. "Hey!" she calls, voice softer than planned. The girl lifts her face, wary, like always expecting scolding. The dog curls behind her, still chewing. The child's eyes flicker, fear, hope, the constant doubt of someone who learned promises usually break. "What's your name?" asks the millionaire, a plain question that feels too heavy. Silence. The girl looks around, measures the distance to run. She answers slowly, lips barely moving. Clara. The name hangs in the air. Clara. Fate's irony, a light in the middle of night. Clara, the millionaire repeats, as if testing her own nerve. Ma, are you alone? The question opens a crack. The girl shakes her head, which could mean yes or depends, then adds without drama like reciting a rule. Sometimes a lady lets me sleep near the newsstand, sometimes not. I keep walking. The millionaire's stomach turns. She wants to reach out but holds back. Too close might scare her. To care without pushing. That's the thin line she must learn in seconds. I spoke to you in a harsh way, she admits, surprised by her own words. I'm sorry. Clara shrugs, and it hurts more. The child has already learned to treat the abnormal as normal. Worse than hunger is the certainty that no one owes you anything, not even respect. You don't want money? The millionaire tries. I can give you some now. Clara shakes her head. I'm scared. Sometimes they take it. Sometimes they fight. I only wanted leftovers. The woman looks inside the restaurant at the cart of dishes, at the belt that carries whole plates back to the kitchen. She feels a wave of old shame, not the kind that shrinks, but the kind that pushes forward. She recalls another scene, herself as a kid, knocking at the cafe's back door. A young woman opens, annoyed. Miss, do you have old bread? The reply, I can't. The boss yells, all goes to the trash, and the door shuts with the slam of a verdict. Did you try a shelter today? She asks, grasping for some sense. It was full. Sometimes they let me, sometimes not. I stay nearby. Or Clara points with her chin toward a square. Bad people there at night. I stay awake till it's light. The dog finishes the bread and licks her fingers. Clara laughs low, a laugh from a place so old where childhood still fights to exist. The millionaire, without knowing, smiles back, a rare smile, not made for photos, but to remind herself there is still humanity here. Behind them, someone mutters, all this over a kid? She should go to social services. Let the state handle it. The phrase enters her ear and shatters like glass. The state. Them. Words that push away responsibility onto something vague. The millionaire sees herself in that. How many times had she passed the blame, signing checks that bought her distance? Clara, she says, now calling the name with the firmness of a decision. Come with me a moment. The girl steps back, a quick reflex. Her body learned that invites can hide traps. The millionaire notices, lowers her tone, shows her empty hands at chest height, a sign she won't touch without consent. I won't force you into anything, she goes on. I only want you to eat real food tonight. Just ahead there's good food. No scraps. Warm. The dog barks once, unsure. Clara weighs the offer with the seriousness of someone bargaining for her own safety. She looks at the fancy clothes, the sparkle of the earrings, the car waiting with the driver alert. She looks again at the dog as if asking advice, and then asks the question no one expected. After, can I leave? The millionaire senses the question is a test, not of morals but of control. Street kids have one sure thing, the exit. If she says no, the only pact breaks. You can, she replies, without pause. You choose. Clara eases just a little. Enough for hope to slip in. Enough for the decision to finally shift. It's no longer if the woman will step in, but how, and that how will demand courage. Behind them, the restaurant door opens again. A manager steps out, nervous about the scene growing outside. He shoots a measured glance at the millionaire, spots the VIP client and smiles by habit. Madam, is everything all right? Can I help? The millionaire turns her face slowly and, for the first time that night, gives an order not about profits, deadlines or deals. Bring a hot plate of food, the best you have, and water, for two. The manager blinks, startled, searches her eyes for some joke, finds only resolve. He nods, almost bowing. Right away, the sentence hangs in the air like the crack of a new chapter. The driver, at a distance, lets out a short sigh, resigned. The elegant couple quickens their pace, uneasy with the broken bubble. The waiter, pushing plates to the cart, stops, as if watching something rare. Clara grips the leftover bread, unsure. The millionaire opens her palm, not to pull, but to invite. There is 1 second that could last a lifetime, the second when the child chooses to believe. She takes a step, then another. And the millionaire feels, as clear as lightning, that she has crossed a border with no return. This is the turning point. Not the grand gesture that makes headlines, the small one, the private one, the one no one claps for, but that shifts entire plates deep beneath a life. When Clara comes near, the millionaire takes a cloth handkerchief from her pocket and, asking with her eyes, offers it. The girl accepts, slowly wipes her mouth and hands as if rehearsing a forgotten ritual of dignity. The dog, full, curls at her feet, an unlikely guard. The restaurant door opens again. The manager appears with 2 steaming plates and 2 bottles of water. People watch. Some smile, some frown, some record, many judge. The millionaire sees none of it. She sees only the child and a hot meal. "Come," she says, in a voice seeking no applause or pardon. "Let's eat." And as she takes the first step to the outside table, she knows everything that comes after, the pushback, the doubts, the red tape, will stem from this instant. The instant she chose not to be the one who turned away from her own story. The millionaire walked 2 steps towards Sophia and at once felt the weight of stares stick to her like fine dust that won't brush off. The glass front of the restaurant mirrored the scene. On one side, tables with shining cutlery and easy laughter. On the other, a child holding a piece of hard bread between her fingers. It was as if 2 worlds were split by a chalk line on the sidewalk, and she standing there ready to cross. "What's your name?" she asked again, this time with a firmer voice. "Sophia," the girl answered, almost soundless, but with her chin raised like someone trying to keep the bit of dignity the day had left. A couple leaving the restaurant slowed their steps. The woman, with a small purse hanging on her arm, pressed her lips tight. "She's gonna get involved," she whispered, not hiding her discomfort. "This always ends messy," said the man, with the impatient gesture of someone who had already pictured the scene before. The driver, parked by the curb with the car door still open, cleared his throat to be heard. "Miss Helena, better not." He stopped, choosing words. "You have an early meeting tomorrow, and this, it could show up on gossip sites." Helena, the millionaire, had a name. And in that moment, hearing Helena out loud sounded like being pulled back into her own skin. The executive, the investor, the woman trained to never pause. Yet strangely, her feet did pause. Not for the girl, for the world around. 2 waiters walked toward the trash with black bags. One, young, avoided looking at the child. The other, older, risked a soft warning. "Miss, these situations are tricky." Management asked not to create a crowd at the door. A crowd? Helena looked around. There were only half a dozen onlookers, a guard leaning on the frame, and an influencer holding up his phone, recording stories. "And you call this a crowd?" The waiter had no answer. The guard stepped forward instead. "Madam, if you want to help, please do it somewhere else. The restaurant would rather these encounters not happen here." These encounters. The words dropped like cracked ice on the ground. For a moment, Helena felt the old instinct of self-protection. Turn her back, get in the car, pretend nothing happened. That was how she guarded her image, her business, her storyline. But there was an older story at stake, the one of the 10-year-old girl she once was, who begged for bread outside a bakery and got laughter instead. "Did you have dinner tonight, Sophia?" she asked, ignoring the warnings around. The girl shook her head. Her small hands squeezed the hard crumb of bread as if willpower could turn it into soup. "No," she said, and left it at that. No excuse, no drama, no, period. A woman in a glitter dress stepped in with the easy certainty of someone who never had to doubt. "Madam, you're being naive. Today it's food, tomorrow they'll want money, then they'll come back with more. That's what NGOs are for." Helena turned slowly, meeting the stranger's eyes. "NGOs exist," she replied, "but hunger, when it comes, doesn't wait for office hours." The woman huffed, insulted, and walked away. In the glass, Helena saw her own face, makeup flawless, eyes tired, and a hidden crack between pride and memory. The driver's voice came again, now behind her shoulder. We need to go. I can call someone to handle the situation. Handle the situation. As if the girl were a lost file, a delay in schedule, an unread email. Helena breathed deep. Her throat burned with an old memory, the time she heard, "People like you block the flow." The flow of what? Of plates, of profit, of rushed folks who only want to dine and forget the rest of the world outside. A man in a navy suit, a regular client, barged in. "Dr. Helena, it is you, isn't it? I admire you greatly, but out here people use kids to scam. I've seen it." "Have you seen this child trying to scam anyone?" Helena asked without raising her voice. The man went silent, fixed his tie. His solid certainty slipped for a second, but unease soon turned into polite mockery. "Look, I just speak from experience. Getting involved is trouble." Helena answered with a short nod, like ending a meeting that no longer made sense. Then she bent down to meet Sophia's eyes. Instinctively, people stepped back half a pace. The scene was about to cross the line of what's acceptable. "Sophia," she said, soft. "Do you have someone?" The girl thought. Her eyes went left, then to the ground. Then she gave the smallest nod as if saying, "I have me. I manage," she murmured. Helena felt a sting in her chest. The "I manage" carried no pride. It carried survival. It was the line of someone who learned that asking hurts more than hunger. A teen holding his phone close shoved an improvised mic. "Gonna feed her, lady? That'll get views, huh?" The guard pushed him back with a gesture. The influencer protested, but soon left, chasing another scene. From inside the restaurant, the manager came to the door with a smile trained to put out fires. "Madam Helena, what an honor to have you. Is there a problem? We can arrange something for the girl." Quietly, in the back, in the back. The word echoed. Helena looked at the side door, then at the trash bin. That's where the world liked to shove what it didn't want to see. In the back. Off frame, off talk, off record. "No," she replied, plain. "If there's food, it can be served right here in front." The manager bit her tongue, tense. She leaned on the column, measuring the glamour slipping away by the minute. "Madam," pressed the driver, now with the dry tone of someone sure he's saving the boss from herself. "You've already done a lot for this city. No need to expose yourself. The press," Helena repeated, almost with a short laugh. "When I started, no one in the press cared. Now they ask me to speak on social duty and suggest I run from a hungry child." She breathed and without anger ended, "Hunger is not a headline. It's a fact." Sophia watched everything, silent. There was something in her eyes, a timid but steady glow, like an ember that doesn't die in the wind. Helena knew that glow. It was what remained when they stripped you of everything. A middle-aged man, strong smell of alcohol, staggered from the other side of the street and stopped, curious. He was a local homeless man called Naldo. He recognized the girl. "Little Sophia," he said, rough voice. "Found bread today." "I did." She showed the piece, almost nothing. Naldo nodded, turned to Helena, blunt. "Lady, don't lose heart now. Plenty starts strong and turn weak when it's time to give a hand. If you're gonna promise, better not speak at all." Helena took the warning like someone handed a mirror. She had promised nothing, and maybe that's why she could still promise everything. "I won't promise," she said. "I'll do it." The circle of stares tightened. There was disapproval, curiosity, cynicism, and also a quiet respect no one would admit. The young waiter, the one who had looked away before, stepped forward. I can ask the kitchen for a plate for her, quick." The manager raised a brow, annoyed. Helena, however, did not waver. "You can, but I'll pay." "Not needed, ma'am," rushed the waiter. "It is needed," Helena cut, making it clear. This wasn't a favor, it was a correction, of course. Her phone buzzed in the purse. The screen lit with her older brother's name. "Daniel," she answered. "Where are you?" His voice was sharp. "A video of you came out. They're already saying you were surrounded." Helena breathed, staring at the dark sky above the wires and lights. "I was surrounded, yes," she said. "Surrounded by opinions. And by legal risk," Daniel added. If you take this girl anywhere and anything happens, they'll blame you. Think of the board, the companies. I'm thinking of the girl, she replied, and hung up before the but arrived. The choice wasn't just about food, it was about which side of the story she would stand on when the story looked back with shame. Helena rose from her crouch, smoothed her dress with a quick hand, and reached out to Sophia. Come, she said, direct. Let's eat real food. In front, at a table with plate, fork, glass, and water, Sophia's eyes went wide in pure shock. I can go inside? You can, Helena confirmed, as if signing a deal. And it won't be through the back. The manager, tense, tried to object. Madam, the house rules. The rule of the house is to serve food, Helena replied. Calm. The rest are habits. Habits we can change. The guard crossed his arms, watching. There was no threat here. Only discomfort. And he knew discomfort was the start of both good change and big trouble. Naldo, across the way, muttered a drawn-out, "That's it," like someone watching an impossible goal. The boy with the phone showed up again, now less smug, filming from afar. There was less scandal than he hoped, more silence than could bring likes. Helena noticed the tremble in Sophia's hand, and before taking the first step, whispered just to her, "No one's doing you a favor. You're coming in because you're hungry, and hunger is solved with food. The rest we deal with later." Sophia nodded. Her first step was small, but whole. The second, a bit bigger. By the third, Helena saw the stairs no longer froze her. They only witnessed. When they reached the door, Helena turned toward the driver. "You can go. I'll return alone." "But, Mom, I'll return," she repeated, with the same firmness she had years ago, when she decided she would never be invisible. They crossed the chalk line. Inside, the sound of cutlery stopped for 3 seconds, just enough for a whole restaurant to relearn how to look. On the 4th second, talk resumed, awkward, as if trying to fake normal. The manager led them to a corner table, and Helena thanked her with a nod. Before sitting, Helena asked Sophia, "Do you want soup or rice with beans?" "Both?" Sophia ventured with a small smile that didn't ask pardon. "Both," Helena confirmed, and finally sat, feeling the weight on her shoulders move elsewhere. Outside, the cold went on. Inside, resistance sat at the table, not as an enemy, but as proof. Because every act of humanity must walk through a hallway of doubt before finding its room. And that night, without official lights, without speeches, without signed checks for show, Helena chose to stand with those who feel hunger. The rest, the headlines, the boards, the habits, would have to learn to stand on the right side, too. At the exact moment the waitress brought the water, the influencer lowered his phone. The video, oddly, no longer seemed fun. It had no scandal to sell. Only a woman and a girl, sitting, waiting for 2 plates soon to arrive. And for some, that never seems enough. For those who are hungry, it is everything. Helena took a deep breath. The worst of the resistance had passed, not because the eyes were gone, but because they no longer chose her next step. "Let's eat," she said, and the line sounded like a password to open the door to the next chapter. Sophia's eyes widened. No one had ever said that to her. For a moment she seemed not to believe. I don't have money," she whispered, almost voiceless. The millionaire leaned closer, meeting her eyes. "I didn't ask for money. I asked you to come with me." The whispers grew louder. "Has she gone mad?" murmured a man. "Sitting a street child inside a place like this," said a woman, outraged. But the millionaire didn't care. She held Sophia's small, cold hand tight and led her back into the restaurant. The waiter, startled, tried to block the way. "Madam, excuse me, but this child is my guest." She cut in with the same firmness she used to close million-dollar deals. The man swallowed hard and stepped aside, opening the way. The eyes inside the hall were even heavier. Whole tables had stopped to stare. Some wrinkled their noses, others laughed with scorn. But the millionaire kept walking, choosing the best table available, by the window. They sat down. Sophia was uneasy, shrinking, as if committing a crime. Her eyes darted everywhere, too shy to face anyone. The millionaire picked up the menu and placed it in her hands. "Choose whatever you want." Sophia looked at the paper full of strange names and pretty photos, but her face showed confusion. "I don't read well," she said, embarrassed. The millionaire felt her chest tighten once more. "Then I'll choose for you." She called the waiter and asked for the fullest meal there was. Pasta, chicken, veggies, bread, dessert. The waiter wrote it down, his face stuck between shock and duty. While they waited, the millionaire tried to talk. "Do you have family, Sophia?" The girl shrugged. "My mum, she got sick and never came back. My dad, I never knew." The millionaire swallowed hard. "And you go to school?" "No, I wanted to, but I need to search for food." There was something in the way the girl spoke. Even without school, her phrases were clear, her eyes lit up when she mentioned books and class. It was as if a hidden gift lived there, smothered by poverty. When the food arrived, the whole room seemed to hold its breath. The waiter set the huge plate in front of Sophia. The girl looked at the meal like it was a dream. Her eyes filled with tears. She didn't dive into the food as many would expect. Instead, she joined her hands, closed her eyes, and whispered thanks before taking the first bite. The millionaire watched in silence, feeling a lump in her throat. It wasn't just hunger. It was gratitude, dignity, and humility in every move. After a few bites, Sophia raised her eyes and said, "I wanted to learn to read well. One day, I found a book in the trash, tried to read, but couldn't get all the words. Must be so nice to know everything written there." The millionaire was stunned. How many kids, with everything at hand, wasted school? And here was this girl, hungry and cold, dreaming of learning to read. "What would you do if you could study?" the millionaire asked, curious. Sophia thought for a moment. "I'd like to be a teacher, so I could teach other kids who have no chance, like me." The words cut through the millionaire like lightning. She saw not only a hungry child, but a spark of hope, a raw talent needing only a chance to become flame. Suddenly, she understood clearly. Sophia didn't want handouts. She wanted a future. And that night, under stares of disapproval and whispered poison, the millionaire knew that girl was not ordinary. There was a quiet mind, a hidden strength under the fragility. It was the proof she needed to see. Sophia had what money could never buy: courage, dreams, and will. And that was enough to plant in the millionaire a choice that would change both lives forever. The next morning, the millionaire woke with the feeling the night before had not been real. But when she opened her eyes and recalled the stares at the restaurant, Sophia's sweet and steady words, she knew nothing would ever be the same. She had crossed an invisible line, a line that split those who pretend not to see pain and those who choose to do something about it. But the world does not forgive those who swim against the tide. That same day, her first call came from her sister, a known socialite. "I heard about last night's scandal. Are you insane?" Her voice full of outrage. "Taking a beggar inside a luxury restaurant? Do you know what that does to your image?" The millionaire sighed. "She isn't a beggar. She's a child, a hungry child." "Doesn't matter," the sister snapped. "You built an empire, a name, and now you'll throw it away for some random girl." She hung up without replying, but the criticism didn't stop there. Hours later, one of her closest friends, a big businessman, came to her office. "You need to be practical," he said, sitting across from her. "What you did last night could harm the business. Our investors don't want to hear you're tied to social cases, especially like this." "And what if that's exactly what matters?" She shot back, firm. "What matters is holding your place. Don't forget how far you've come." With every word, the millionaire felt the pressure grow. Her sharp mind knew they were right. Her image was a valuable asset. But inside, a stronger voice whispered that this time she could not bow to the cold logic of profit. Meanwhile, Sophia stayed quiet in the small guest room the millionaire had set up for her. The girl asked for nothing but plain food and a place to sleep. She didn't touch the fancy objects, made no demands. She spent hours staring at the books on the shelf, even without reading well. One night, the millionaire found her trying to copy letters on a sheet of paper. "What are you doing, Sophia?" she asked, curious. "Practicing. I want to learn to write my name right," the girl answered, showing the crooked letters on the page. That scene hit like a punch to the stomach. While so many kids from rich families dismissed learning, Sophia dreamed of mastering words. But outside those walls, the pressure only grew. The press found the story. Headlines began to spread. Millionaire takes street child to luxury restaurant. Act of kindness or PR stunt. Social scandal, a savior for the night or an eccentric businesswoman. The comments were even harsher. "It's just publicity. That girl will cause trouble, mark my words. None of this lasts. She'll be back on the street soon." Each line was a stone thrown against the millionaire's choice. Friends began to pull away. Invites to events vanished. Even some partners hinted she should rethink this risky emotional involvement. Inside her, doubt grew. Was she really destroying all she had built? But just one look at Sophia brought the answer clear. One night, the girl surprised her, saying, "I can leave if you want. I don't want to mess up your life." The millionaire turned quickly, shocked by the words. "Who told you that?" "I heard some people on TV saying I'll hurt you," Sophia replied, head low. "I don't want to be a burden." At that moment, the millionaire realized the hardest part wasn't the outside judgment. The hardest part was convincing Sophia she deserved a chance. With a steady voice, she answered, "You're not a burden. You're a gift. The rest of the world may not get it now, but I know what I'm doing." Sophia lifted her eyes, and for the first time since they met, smiled with trust. The millionaire knew many obstacles lay ahead: the red tape, society's doubt, the bias of all. But she also knew there was no turning back, because deep down she had learned something no one around seemed to see. The real investment wasn't in stocks, houses, or firms. It was right there, in that child hungry for food and knowledge. And that was the one investment she was ready to defend, no matter the cost. The days that followed were a mix of hope and strain. The millionaire, used to fixing all with money and power, found that this time it would not be so simple. Giving Sophia dinner had been an act of care, but bringing her into her house, into her life, was a step that would shake much bigger ground. She made the choice. Sophia would never go back to the street. Never again. She called her private lawyer and said, "I want this girl's situation made legal. I want her to have papers, school, home. I want her to be officially part of my life." The man's eyes widened. "Madam, it's not that simple. There's paperwork, adoption laws, interviews, agencies. Then start today." She cut in. And so began a battle no billions could win with ease. At the first meeting at Child Services, the mistrust was instant. "A businesswoman of your level, wanting to adopt a street kid?" said the caseworker, frowning. "Why now?" The millionaire held her posture. "Because I know what it is to be her. Because I was her." The caseworker smirked, doubtful. "Many do charity for a while and then quit. Do you understand adoption isn't aid? It's a lifelong promise." The words were sharp, but she did not step back. "I understand, and I'm ready." Across the room, Sophia watched in silence, her hands sweaty, her eyes unsure. At every question, she feared being turned away again. On the ride home, inside the car, the girl finally asked, "And if they say no?" The millionaire squeezed her hand. "Then we'll fight until they say yes." But it wasn't only the red tape that weighed heavy. The social bias was even more cruel. Headlines filled papers and gossip sites. "Millionaire wants to adopt street child, act of kindness or oddity." Society split. Some cheer, others cry opportunism. In her mansion, some staff whispered in the halls, "This will cause problems." Street kid inside the house? Not safe. The millionaire heard it all, but pretended not to. She had one focus: Sophia. And the girl, in turn, proved each day she was worth every effort. She asked for nothing, helped make her bed, washed her own dish, thanked for every meal as if it were the first. One night, the millionaire entered her room and found her sitting on the bed, with a book open on her lap. "Who gave you that book?" she asked. "I found it on the shelf in the living room. I can't read all the words, but I keep trying to guess." The millionaire smiled, moved. "Tomorrow, I'll take you to a school." The next day, she brought her to visit a private institution, but the principal, hearing the story, frowned. "Madam, I see your intent, but our classes are very demanding. This girl has no foundation. She won't fit." The millionaire lifted her chin. "Then the school should fit her." The man fell quiet, uneasy. Meanwhile, Sophia walked the halls, amazed. When she saw a board with letters, she pointed at one. "That's the letter in my name. S for Sophia." It was a small act, but for the millionaire it felt like a sign. The flame was lit. That night, already at home, the millionaire made the final choice. "Sophia, you're not going back to the street. From today on, this is your home." The girl's eyes widened. Tears ran down her dirty, delicate face. "Really? Really?" And they hugged, a long, tight hug, as if stitching two stories into one. But the peak of this journey was not only emotional. Days later, the millionaire got the call that confirmed her fight. The temporary custody had been approved. Sophia could legally live with her while adoption was under review. When she gave the news, the girl jumped with joy, almost not believing. "So I'll never have to sleep on the street again. Never again." At that moment, everything else seemed to fade. The luxury, the gossip, the headlines, none of it mattered. What mattered was that for the first time in a long while, two souls who knew the pain of hunger and rejection had found in each other a reason to believe tomorrow could be different. And this was just the start of a change that would alter not only their lives, but the way the world would see that story. The first days of Sophia living in the mansion were a clash of worlds. For her, every detail was new. The room with a soft bed, the clean sheets, the light on at night without fear of the dark street. For the millionaire, it was just as surprising to see how a child could treasure things she herself no longer noticed. On the first morning, Sophia woke before sunrise. She was used to fighting for space on sidewalks and hiding from danger. She got up, made the bed in her own way, and went to the kitchen. The housemaid found her trying to wipe the table. "No need, dear," the woman said, smiling. "I want to help. I always helped my mum when I could," Sophia answered simply. The girl's humility slowly won everyone over. Even those who, at first, whispered against her presence began to see her differently. The millionaire, who used to start her days in meetings, found she now had a new routine, having breakfast with Sophia. She loved watching the girl discover flavors for the first time. A glass of chocolate milk was treated like treasure. A simple fruit, like an apple, was savored slowly, gratitude shining on her face. But the biggest step was still to come: school. On her first day of class, Sophia shook with nerves. She wore the brand new uniform, but seemed to believe she didn't belong there. At the gate, she gripped the millionaire's hand tight. "They'll laugh at me," she whispered. "Let them laugh. One day, they'll clap for you," the woman answered firmly. Inside the classroom, the other kids stared with curiosity. Some whispered, but Sophia kept her head high. The start was tough. She couldn't keep up with reading, struggled in math, felt behind in everything. But there was one thing no one could deny: her effort. While some students got distracted, Sophia stayed focused, asked questions, tried again until she understood. She went home and kept studying alone, scribbling words in her notebook. The millionaire watched in silence, remembering her own childhood. She too had felt the weight of falling behind in school, too had felt the shame of not knowing. But now, seeing Sophia fight, she felt as if she were fighting again, this time with the chance to win. One night, while going over lessons, Sophia managed to read a whole line without stopping. "The sun rises and lights the day," she said, her voice shaking with joy. The millionaire clapped, thrilled. "You did it, Sophia! You did it!" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I'd never learn." At that moment, the millionaire realized she wasn't just giving food and shelter. She was giving something far greater, a future. And at the same time, she was also receiving something back, because by caring for Sophia, she rediscovered parts of herself buried under rush and wealth. She found that true happiness wasn't in signed deals or imported cars, but in the small daily steps of a child who believed in her. The outside criticism still existed, but it no longer carried the same weight, because with every smile from Sophia, every lesson learned, every sudden hug, the millionaire felt inside that she had made the right choice. One night, arriving from an event, she found Sophia asleep on the couch, holding a storybook. The sight made her smile. She grabbed a blanket, covered the girl, and watched for a few minutes. There, in silence, she understood something deep. All the wealth she had built would never mean anything if it couldn't change lives. And Sophia, without knowing, had already changed hers. It was the start of a new stage. A stage not just about saving a child from the street, but saving herself from a life empty, filled only with numbers and status. Now, there was a bigger purpose. Years went by. Time, once Sophia's enemy, was now her best ally. The girl who once begged for leftovers at a restaurant door had become a young woman, determined, in love with learning and with life. The millionaire stood by her at every step of that change. From the first scribbled letters in her notebook to the long nights when Sophia studied for tough exams. The effort was daily, the discipline almost unreal. She didn't just want to learn. She wanted to prove she could be far more than what life had handed her. And she did. On the day of her high school graduation, the hall was full. Proud parents, smiling teachers, excited classmates. Among them, in the front row, sat the woman who had changed everything. The millionaire, elegant as always, but with quiet tears in her eyes, watched Sophia walk across the stage with the diploma in her hands. The audience clapped, but when the microphone was handed to Sophia, silence filled the room. She took a deep breath. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they found the millionaires, and then she began, "I don't know if everyone here knows my story, but once I was just a street kid, a child with no home, no school, and many times nothing to eat." Soft murmurs rose in the crowd, surprised. "I remember the cold sidewalks, the fear of the nights, the shame of asking for food," she went on. "But I also remember the day I met a woman who could have ignored me, and almost did." The millionaire lowered her head, moved, because she knew exactly which moment Sophia meant. "I only asked for the leftovers from her plate. I just wanted what no one else wanted, but instead of scraps, she gave me a future." The words echoed in the hall. Many began to cry. "This woman believed in me when no one else did. She gave me not just food and shelter, but the chance to study, to dream, to be someone. Everything I've achieved until now I owe to her." Sophia paused. Her eyes shone, not with sadness, but with gratitude. "Today I receive this diploma, but I don't receive it alone. I receive it in the name of the child I once was, and in the name of all the kids still out there, asking for scraps. I want them to know it is possible to change your own story." The hall exploded into standing applause. Teachers, classmates, even strangers cried and clapped without stopping. The millionaire, unable to hold back her tears, stood and clapped too. Deep inside, she knew that speech wasn't just about Sophia. It was about her as well, because by helping that girl, she had rescued herself. After the ceremony, Sophia ran to the millionaire and hugged her tight. "I did it," she said, smiling through tears. "You always did. You just needed a chance," the woman replied, her voice breaking. And there, in the middle of the crowd, they both understood they had defeated more than hunger, prejudice, or poverty. They had defeated indifference. Because the final lesson was clear. Sometimes what looks like a leftover to you can be someone else's whole world. And in that moment, there was no millionaire and no street kid. There were only two lives tied together by courage, love, and hope. The hall was still roaring with applause when Sophia stepped off the stage. The millionaire stood watching, knowing that moment wasn't only a victory for the young woman, but for herself too. Fate had joined two lives that in normal times would never have crossed, and now both knew nothing would ever be the same. In the days after graduation, Sophia's story spread. Newspapers, websites, and TV shows spoke of the girl who asked for scraps and was given a future. Some praised the millionaire, others still doubted her intent. But to her, none of that mattered, because the true reward wasn't in headlines but in the glow of Sophia's eyes. The millionaire, who once measured life's value by deals and profit, now saw wealth in simple gestures, in Sophia's laugh when learning a new word, in the confidence with which she faced the world, in the gratitude she showed even for the smallest things. She herself had changed. She found that real abundance wasn't in piling up, but in sharing, not in being served, but in serving. And as she watched Sophia plan her next steps, entering college, becoming a teacher, helping other kids, the millionaire realized her legacy wouldn't just be money, buildings, or companies. It would be a life transformed. It would be the invisible chain of kindness that would keep spreading, far beyond what she could imagine. But the lesson this story left was bigger than the two of them. How many Sophias live on the streets, unseen by rushed eyes? How many kids learn to smile in surrender when given a cold no? How many stories of potential are buried every day because someone chose not to look, not to listen, not to care? The world is full of people asking only for leftovers. Leftovers of attention, leftovers of care, leftovers of opportunity. And often what is left over for some is exactly what can save others. The millionaire learned this in the deepest way. She understood her fortune had no meaning if it couldn't be used to change lives. She understood helping Sophia wasn't charity, it was justice. It was giving back the chance the world had once denied her. And Sophia, in turn, understood poverty didn't define who she was. Hunger could hurt the body, but not destroy dreams. That dignity and hope are forces as strong as any material wealth. Their journey had become a bridge. On one side, the pain of rejection. On the other, the beauty of opportunity. And maybe that's the message left for all of us. Each person carries the power to be that bridge. You don't need to be a millionaire to change someone's life. Sometimes it's enough to listen, enough to see, enough to reach out at the right moment. Because at the end of the day, what truly measures the greatness of a life isn't how much you own, but how many lives you've touched along the way. That day, standing before Sophia holding up her diploma, the millionaire knew she had found her real legacy. Not a fortune left behind, but a seed planted in the heart of someone who would keep spreading fruit. And you, hearing this story now, might ask yourself, how many times have you ignored a hungry look, a shy request, a hand reaching out? How many times did you turn your face away because it was easier? We may never know how far a single act of kindness can go. But one thing is sure, sometimes what seems small to you can be the whole world to someone else. And that's where everything changes.